Wide! It's the show that always scores. Wadden and JPat here with you. Rink Wide is presented by our friends at Bodog. Poker tips, sports odds, and free casino games. It's time to play, JPat, and it's time to play for the Canucks Young Stars. As you're in Penticton right now, you watched them play last night against the Calgary Flames in a tidy 3-0 victory for the Canucks.
Yeah, hockey season is officially underway. I can tell you, I saw a game with my own two eyes on Friday night. It was just good to be back in the rink. I was there for practice on Thursday and a morning skate, but to see these guys actually playing games last night, and I tweeted this out, that maybe it's just been the absence of organized hockey. But I actually thought through 40 minutes of play, there hadn't been a goal scored, but I thought it was a pretty entertaining game. And the goaltenders were certainly the stars of the show. Arturs Silovs for the Canucks and Dustin Wolf for the Calgary Flames, and they both held their own and hadn't given up a goal through the first couple of periods. And then, of course, the Canucks scored 3 times in the third, so they win at 3-0. And for me, I look at the night, and look, we have spent countless podcasts here leading up to documenting the fact that there aren't a ton of stars. There isn't a lot of star power on this Canuck Young Stars roster, and there aren't that many young players either. But the guys that we did talk about, I think, were the guys that put their best foot forward. Like Arshdeep Bains was a guy that we all wanted to see. What's he going to look like as he makes the jump from major junior? Jace Waters, who wore one of the A's and was looked to be a leader, and they wanted him to be a leader at that summer development camp, but at UBC, has some AHL experience. Thought he was really good last night. Kristen Nielsen, who played for Abbotsford last year, scored a lovely goal. The 2-0 goal had a massive hit as well that drew the attention of some of the Flames players. Game was tame. I mean, it had a temperature to it. There were some penalties, but nothing more than that. And for the most part, I think that was a function of the fact that it was a scoreless game, right? Like, we have seen games at all sorts of levels. If the score gets out of hand, the game can get out of hand and get away from the officials and all those types of things. It was a little sloppy and choppy, as you'd expect for the first game of the season for a lot of these guys. But overall, like, I think the Canucks have to be pretty happy that, they get the win, and let's not make more of it than it is. You want to win every time you step on the ice. But, I made this distinction on Sekeres and Price. It really isn't a tournament as much as it is a showcase here in Penticton, because there are no playoffs. There's no championship game. There's nothing at stake. So you play to win each game. But ultimately, if you come home with an 0-3 record, but some of your best players step up and put their best foot forward, there's probably ways to spin that it was a successful weekend. If you go 3-0, but some of the guys you expected to show better than they did, maybe then you've got some question marks coming out of it. So to me, it's more of a showcase than it is a tournament. Whatever the case, the Canucks, they get a win in their first one. They kind of get that rust off. And I know we'll talk more about Arturs Silovs, but hey, you can't ask for more than a shutout from your goaltender.
Yeah.
He went the distance, and he was really good. And I thought he was busiest in the second period when he stopped 12 shots, but I actually thought maybe his best save came in the first period, glove save off Jack Beck. Jack Beck. You've been charting his progress.
Big Jack Beck fan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He had a good look, and Silovs made a really nice glove save. So good night all around for Arturs Silovs on out for the Vancouver Canuck Young Stars.
All right, we're going to talk about Seloff in just a moment, but I want to start with Arshdeep Bains there, the local product out of Surrey, opens the scoring. Here is Arshdeep post-game talking about that goal.
Yeah, I just kind of saw a quick transition, saw that Waters got the puck, drove in net, just kind of predicted a little rebound, and just turned out that it went off my body, went in.
What did it mean to you to score in Canuck colors here in your first game?
Yeah, pretty special. I think just kind of a little bit of relief, get it out of the way, and now we just keep going, get better every day.
So a couple things that I like about this from Baines. I like him going to the net. It was a good move or a good shot from Waters. I just like the whole sequence of it really exposed the young defenseman there as well. But when you talk about guys like Waters and Baines, like these are guys, these aren't young stars. These are guys that like are going to be fighting to try to get themselves a roster spot, maybe not opening day roster, but at least sometime down the road with the Canucks this season.
Yeah, and look, good for Arshdeep Bains. He scores a goal, as you said, goes to the net, rewarded for it. If he had come away from the night and he hadn't scored, I still think we would have been praising him for his play with the puck, away from the puck. Now, this isn't the NHL. This isn't even the AHL. It's a mix of players. And with a guy that, a WHL scoring title under his belt, he comes in with a little bit of pedigree, and I think we saw some of that. But I liked him right from the first period on. Like, he certainly didn't look overwhelmed by any means. And had some poise and some patience with the puck, played in traffic. And then, as you said, like that's good for him. It's a heads. He played it, know to go to the net, but not give up. Don't do the flyby. Rebound comes out and it basically banks in off him. And so, yeah, that line with Waters and Linus Karlsson was the other guy. And I know that we've talked about Linus Karlsson, and we certainly can again. That line stood out. That was probably the best line on the night either way. And Karlsson finishes with a goal and an assist. And wow, in on 2 of the 3 goals, an empty netter and a second assist. So let's slow the roll. He was fine, but I didn't think he was as good as Arshdeep Bains or Chase Waters.
Yeah, you mentioned that WHL scoring title, 43 goals, 112 points in 68 games last season with the Red Deer Rebels. So, some high pedigree for Baines. And of course, being a local product, a lot of people wanting to get behind him. Maybe Jeremy Colleton will be getting behind him, the head coach of the Abbotsford Canucks. Here's Colleton on Baines.
Yeah, I thought he was really good all night. Nice for him to get rewarded with a goal, but I think even if he wouldn't have scored, we would say that he was really, really solid and protected the puck, won races. He was on the puck, it seemed like, every time he was on the ice, and that really helps your team just to settle down. And so obviously great net drive there to score, but thought a complete game as well.
I don't know about you, but Jeremy Colleton to me has sort of flown under the radar as we sort of get back into Canucks hockey here. Like, this is an NHL head coach who's now who's now in the AHL. And he's a young man, of course, and I'm sure he's got aspirations of getting back to the NHL, but I think it might be something of good for the Canucks in terms of the organization to have someone like Colleton down in the AHL, to have that certain pedigree down there, especially with these young players.
Yeah, and look, he's not the first guy that has been an NHL head coach and then had to take a step back, but I think you're right. He's young enough that I'd be shocked if there isn't a second chapter, and maybe a third, at the NHL level for him as a head coach somewhere along the line. And you say, good for him, betting on himself. There are egos involved, and there are some guys, hey, I'm an NHLer, like, I wouldn't step back or I won't step back. And he was willing. He was talking to Patrik Allvin about different opportunities. I think there maybe had been some discussion about bringing him in on the bench with Bruce Boudreau at the NHL level, but he saw this opportunity, and I think he sees himself as a head coach. So pretty good fit. Pretty easy going guy from my limited dealings with him so far. But no, I think there's some real value there in having a guy that has run his own bench in the National Hockey League and now applying all that at the American Hockey League level. But he seems like a good guy to deal with. And the players, the early reviews of just being around him, they were all positive there. And again, they were all feeling good after a 3-0 win last night. Just back to Arshdeep Bains for a sec. His parents were up and in Penticton to see him score. So that was a cool moment for him. I mean, that's a big part of his story, as local boy getting this opportunity, earning this opportunity, and throwing on a Canuck jersey really for the first time in game action, and scores what turns out to be the winner. And then he was asked afterwards, how hardcore were you a Canuck fan growing up? And, that 2011 team, said Kessler was his favorite guy. I don't think he's got the prickishness to his game that Ryan Kessler, maybe he'll develop that. But the other thing I kind of, again, we talk about young stars, and maybe he'll become a star. He's 21 now. But you just think about that, like in that 2011 run, this guy was 10 years old. Like, time marches on. So, 10-year-old Arshdeep Bains probably didn't have a true and full appreciation of, what Ryan Kessler did and meant to the Vancouver Canucks. He was just a 10-year-old who was enjoying, the best era in Vancouver Canuck hockey. And now he's hoping to be a part of another solid one here moving forward. I think it'll take a while. He's destined to start in the American Hockey League. But, hey, first impressions, pretty good one when it came to Friday night here in Penticton.
Yeah, and you got to feel that maybe all three of those guys on that line, in Waters, Karlsson, Bains, like they're all going to push. Whether they'll play a game this year in the NHL is another thing, but they're all going to push. They're going to be down there and chipping in for Abbotsford, and of course for Jeremy Colleton down there as well. Okay, let's get on Arturs Silovs here, because I was saying to you before we lit up the mics that I find him very intriguing. And, I'm the next tendy, so I love the tenders, obviously. But, Spencer Martin, I know a lot of people are really excited about him, the fact that he's, going to get a chance, opportunity to be the backup goaltender this year. But, Arturs Silovs is waiting in the wings right now. And you look at his season last year, limited time with Abbotsford, played in the ECHL with Trois Rivières as well, played in the Olympics with Latvia, represented at the World Hockey Championship as well. And the funny thing is that, I saw him post-game getting interviewed, and I'm like, who is that guy? Because I don't even really know what the guy looks like, nor do I know what he sounds like. Here's what he sounds like if you haven't heard him, because I was surprised as well on the shutout postgame.
Felt good. I think I haven't played for a while, like every single guy. So it was nice to have help from teammates. They battled and we managed to win.
What did you like most about your game tonight? You seem calm, square, solid. What did you like about your game tonight?
I think just opportunity to play. It's like I was practicing so much past couple of years, and I was finally back playing games. Always fun.
So that was kind of my first opportunity to really hear what the young man sounds like. But as you know, with goaltenders, it's a little bit different in terms of seasoning. You want to let them sort of get their feet wet at the AHL level before a lot of guys are able to get into the NHL. But I think with the Canucks right now, when you look at the goaltending, I think they're in a good spot. And I think Seloff puts them in that good spot. And then, of course, with DiPietro there still as well, he could be an asset that you can move down the road to maybe help in other areas.
Yeah, and Colin Delia brought in sort of as a tweener there with some NHL experience and familiarity with Jeremy Colleton from Chicago. So, all those years ago, the goaltending graveyard, and it's been and really the last decade when you go back to Luongo and Schneider and, the lineage, goaltending's been the least of the Canucks' concerns, but they do seem like they're in a pretty good spot. Ian Clark has been a constant. They've got the new goaltending coach to replace Curtis Sanford out in Abbotsford. He's here in Penticton. Man, the Canucks have a massive contingent with management and player development and scouting staff, and they were all up in the box there. Bruce Boudreau and Mike Yeo, Trent Cull. So the coaching staff, the big league coaching staff, a ton of eyeballs on the Vancouver Canucks. Analytics people are here. They really do have just about everybody top to bottom in the organization. Silovs, 24 saves. I mentioned he was busiest in the second period, but maybe at his best in the first. Only 4 shots in the third, and credit to the team in front of him. The group got better. I thought Calgary actually carried the play in the first period, and Silovs had to be sharp. And then game sort of turned in the second. There were a bunch of penalties. And in the third period, the Canucks outshot Calgary 12-4, and most of the play was in the Flames' end. So Silovs didn't have an awful lot to do in that third period, but there were some opportunities, and he made the stops that he was supposed to, and just excited to be playing games. This is a guy, you mentioned it, last year and really the year before with COVID have been difficult for him. So he wants an opportunity, and what a great way for him to sort of get back into his hockey season. It's been a while since he has suited up in game action, and certainly didn't look like he had any rust on him. And for me, one of the things I mentioned, the save off good old Jack Beck. The Flames have this guy, Andrew, Adam Klapka. He's a 6'8" Czech forward.
Wow.
And at this level, he would stand out in the NHL at that size, but at this level, I thought, Canuck defenders were going to have to climb on each other's shoulders to keep this guy. And he played with an edge. It was impossible not to see him. And he tried to set up shop in front of Silovs, and there were a couple of scrambles there where I thought, how did Silovs make those saves? Because he had traffic in front of him, and it was just that Klapka was the guy kept coming back to him. He's just this tower up front. We're used to Chara and Tyler Myers, but you don't forwards. He's an interesting guy. Just keep that name in mind. He's not going to make the Calgary Flames. He's a free agent signing by the organization. So my guess is Abbotsford's going to see a fair bit of them, because Abbotsford and Calgary at the AHL level, I think they play a dozen times this year. And it's just going to be interesting to see, is this a thing of the future? Will we see more 6'8" guys playing in the NHL? I'm not sure that Zdeno Chara really opened the door to the tall guy. Most guys at that size are basketballers. So he stood out. But, I think he might be able to play. So just Adam Klapka is his name. And just file that one away for the next year or two to see how he develops in the Calgary organization.
Did you say 6'8" or 6'9"?
Well, he's listed at 6'8", and then, of course, on skates, he's 6'10". So,
well, Arturs Silovs not a small man as well, 6'4" as well. So, but still a little ways to go there. But some positive news there from Arturs Silovs, and we kind of expected this at the Young Guns, that he was going to be one of those guys that would hopefully stand out for the Canucks. And so far, so good with the shutout there in the 3-0 victory. All right, I think we're done with the game. Let's get on to. Go ahead.
Just let me empty the notebook here quickly on game one. And the next time we do this will be Tuesday after the tournament, and we'll really be able to have a better evaluation. I'm not going to go player by player here. But we talked about Baines, and I thought Waters was good. Niels Aman, there was, they put an A on him. Guys that played professionally in Sweden, he got smoked. I don't know if you saw that highlight in the second period in the slot, head down, and he got absolutely corked, but he popped himself back up and stayed in the game. Everything was fine there. Danila Klimovic, man, he's a wild card. Like, there was some good, but there's some stuff that just leaves you shaking your head, and I don't know. Like, I don't know where it's going to go for him long term. Like, he's a second round pick, and you hope.
It's always been the knock on him, hasn't it?
I know.
He's a bit of a wild card, right?
Yeah, and saw it last night racing down the right wing. Like, he's got this big shot, and then he fired it a mile wide. I want to see him use that shot, use it effectively. He did get an assist on the Nielsen goal. He got the primary assist there, so credit where it's due. But, there's a couple of times on back checks where you see what the coaches see, and you think, like, you can't, like, the message has to get through to this guy. But I will say this, like, he's kind of sneaky, and we've heard this too, like, a little bit dirty at times, like, hacking and whacking guys in the back of the legs as they go up ice, and it's a little bit cheap. But, there is an edge to his game, but he's got to channel that properly. But this is a guy that, he's going to make it or break it, I think, on his offense. Now he's going to have to play defense as well. And so when he's put in a scoring position like he was racing down the right wing there in the first period, put it on net. Make the goalie make a save. Don't help the goalie by putting it up into row 15 here at the South Okanagan Event Center. But it was really a mixed bag for Klimovic. I thought Kristen Nielsen, I kind of lump him and Chase Waters together. Came into the AHL last year. And, if they're going to make the NHL, it's going to be as grinders and depth guys. They're playing higher in the lineup here in Abbotsford. So just remember that the role they've got here at this tournament, that's not really who they are. But to Waters' credit, like, he played a top line role there. And Nielsen, as I mentioned, he scored and he had a big hit. I will not be shocked if someday one of those guys, and maybe both of them, get a game or two in the NHL. Like, I wouldn't rule it out. I think the organization likes a lot about them. And again, right now they're on AHL contracts, so that after an NHL contracts to play for the big league team, I'm not here making any grand proclamations on Rink Wide. That's not, but I'm just saying, like, I think that those guys in a depth capacity, I'm not ruling it out at some point if they continue to develop, under this player development system. So the only other thing that I wanted to mention about the game was we got a Bruce. There it is. Actually got a couple of those.
Nice.
And the first one was pretty funny because Bruce was sitting in a suite kind of open to the public, but up in the upper deck, and everybody could see him. And so the Canucks scored the first goal, and then this Bruce there at his chant broke out, and people are pointing up at him. And we got
he walked out like the Emperor?
but he acknowledged. We got the wave, and he was smiling. He was having fun with it. So
nice.
First Bruce there at his chant of the new hockey season in the books early in the third period on Friday night.
Well done, the people out in Penticton there representing with the Bruce. There it is. The thing about Klimovic is that he's always going to be tied to Logan Stankoven.
Yep.
The 6 picks later, Kamloops native.
Yeah.
That's a tough one to swallow. But as we know, Klimovic had that good, what was it, the U18 tournament or something? Was it the Helinka he had it?
Yep.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
No, it was the U18 in Dallas or in Texas, and Benning was on hand. He saw it, and he scored a hat trick in his first game, and I think that kind of got people's attention. But we shall see. There were just too many moments, quite frankly, where you see what his detractors see and say about him last night. So hopefully he gets better as this thing goes along. Okay. We can pivot off the game now?
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to Patrik Allvin, because he's been speaking with people around in Penticton, including The Athletic, a very interesting piece out there today. A few bits that I pulled out that I want to talk about. One quote, he was saying that they were assuming that Mikheyev was going to pick a U.S. team, and then it sort of surprised them, at least this is what I'm getting through the quote there, that their camp sort of came back to them. I'm wondering, though, if the Canucks were sort of used as a bit of leverage there and that camp came back, because as much as I do like the player, I am still very weary about the number that he's going to, have hanging around his neck, because that's what everybody looks at now when they evaluate players. And I'm wondering if he'll be able to, play up to that $4.7 million.
Yeah, and it's a risk. Like, we know it's speed, and it's an element that the Canucks were sorely lacking. And so he fills a need, but at 4.75, you're paying an awful lot. And again, there's these questions. Did he score a bunch of goals because he was playing on a high-scoring team in Toronto? But he scored 21 goals
as well, getting very.
But he scored 21 goals in only 53 games. Like, people will point to shooting percentage, but like, he didn't come anywhere close to a full season and still scored 21. So I know that you've said repeatedly, and you're not alone, like, crazy number of chances with that speed, but, do the hands catch up to the feet? It was 21. 21 can't be a one-off. When you're paying a guy that much money, you have to have a bottom line. And then the risk is, you saw that Colorado just signed Evan Rodriguez for $2 million. He scored 19 goals last year. And I'm not saying it was one or the other, but I think the hockey world, and the fact that Rodriguez didn't sign until a week before training camp, his camp was trying to negotiate off a 19-goal career-high season, and the rest of the hockey world just wasn't having it, right? Like, otherwise he would have got a contract. So the fact that the Canucks jumped in, gave term, gave money, like, with all of that comes expectations. And I'm excited to see the player, because we know how many times both Travis Green and Bruce Boudreau talked about the other team being quicker and faster and, needing to up team speed. Well, they have done that. But now that, with that contract, there's going to be some demands that this guy step in and score. And I'm really curious. Like, we're out, less than a week out. Like, this time next week, training camp is pretty much over and done, which is crazy to think about. And I'm talking main camp, not youngsters here in Penticton. They're in, they're out. They're done at Whistler. That's it. But, like, we really don't know. And I know Bruce Boudreau's talked about, like, he's gone over it in his mind 1,000 times. Still don't really know, like, what he's thinking in terms of line combinations and where do you best use Mikheyev and his speed. So I love that, though. Like, I like the fact that there is some real intrigue, not so much about jobs to be won, but just optimizing what they've got, what they've brought together here over the offseason. Miller and Besser, Pettersson and Besser, Miller and Pearson had a ton of success midseason last year. But Horvat and Pearson have played together, obviously. Podkolzin trying to pick up where he left off. Like, there are options. And I think training camp, and look, they're not beholden to whatever they show up on Friday in Whistler that first day. Like, that's not the way they're going to skate the entire season. But I'm really curious about the rollout. Like, I want to see what a Bruce Boudreau training camp looks like and where he has players slotted in. And we'll see if we get a better sense of kind of what he's thinking to get the most out of some of these new guys.
Because there's no guarantee that Mikheyev's going to be top 6 in terms of their forward group. Like, he should be, but there's no guarantee, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I look at it and I think not just the contract, but the speed. Like, I want to use that to help the attack. But then there are people that are saying, like, maybe his speed, the best weapon, is trying to neutralize some of the other other players, best players in the National Hockey League. Like, maybe he is part of a checking line, but a checking line plus, because you've got Horvat, you've got Mikheyev, you got 31 goals in Horvat, you got 21 last year for Mikheyev, like, and whoever's on their line. So I come back to options here, but my hunch is that he's part of the new toy group, that they think that there is actually, some upside still there based on the speed and the goal scoring. I have to think that he starts the year in the top 6 for the Vancouver Canucks. But the fact that they've got depth, that's going to promote some competition internally and pushing guys, and Bruce will have options if, Mikheyev goes quiet. And Ferraro always makes the point, if you're a 20-goal scorer, there's 60 games a season where you're not scoring, right? And, like, there's going to be some dark times for everybody. I mean, even the best players go through some stretches where they're not as productive. So you want to limit that, obviously, with a guy like Mikheyev. But I mean, as I sit here today and we record this, I have to think that he's going to be viewed as a top 6 guy to start the season.
Are there benchmarks that he's going to have to hit? Like, it feels to me like he has to hit 20 goals to sort of justify that number that you pay for him. But there's other things, too, that he brings to the game. And I think one of the biggest thing is going to be the penalty kill. Like, if he scores 20 goals, just reaches there. But let's say, 5 of them are shorthanded like he did last year with the Maple Leafs. Like those 5 shorthanded goals are as big as, adding another, say 5 goals to his total, if you will.
Yeah. And like the whole organization, the city, the league knows that the penalty kill has to be better, but it's going to be better. Like
it's going to be. Yeah.
When I think back to the start of last season, Tyler Mott was injured. He missed the first 15 games. Mott by himself wasn't going to turn the penalty kill on its ear, but he would have helped. I mean, he probably would have been the first guy out over the boards along with JT Miller. And so that started the spiral, because then they had to replace Tyler Mott, who was one of their key penalty killers. And, Juha Lammikko arrived the night before the season. He, it wasn't a great penalty killer, but he was put in that position as well. And then like Dickinson obviously didn't live up to his billing. There were a lot of reasons. Remember they tried Justin Bailey for a while. Like they brought him up and he wasn't the answer.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, but he wasn't the answer on the penalty kill, certainly. Like they're going to run out a penalty kill this year that has Mikheyev. It's got Curtis Lazar. It's going to have JT Miller. I think they're going to be a better penalty kill. And quite frankly, I think Thatcher Demko is going to be better shorthanded. They gave up so many grade A's last year that it doesn't reflect well on the goaltending, but a lot of, what was he supposed to do? He can't stop everything. And so, I think if the structure is better in front of him than the shots that make their way through on the power play, you want to believe that Demko will have a better chance of stopping some of them, not all of them. Other teams have some pretty good players, and power plays are going to produce, but I just think I can't wrap my head around a way that the penalty kill will be anywhere close to as disastrous.
No. Yeah, no.
So right off the hop, I think that the Canucks are going to be better in a key area of the hockey game. And, that should serve them well here moving forward.
Now, I'm just curious if he becomes sort of the player that he was in Toronto, which is, high-end PK guy, but a guy maybe on your third line that can chip in with, 15 to 20 goals, if that's going to be enough for Canuck fans. Because everybody knows that's what they look at. They look at the number that they cost the team, right? And rightfully so with a hard salary cap, especially one that hasn't moved in a couple of years.
Yeah, you're paying a guy $5 schmil. He's got to do something more. Like 15 would be a disappointment. Like we went through that with Connor Garland. He got a little hot at the end there. I remember he went 20 games without a goal, and we wondered, is he going to get to the 20 goal mark? And he didn't ultimately. And so,
but what if the PK's top 5 in the league, and Mikheyev's the biggest part of that? You know what I mean? But only scores 17 goals. Are people going to be? You're right.
You'll factor that in certainly, but I just think at $5 million,
It's got to be marks you got to reach. Yeah.
Right. There's some nuts and bolts to this that have to add up at the end of the season. And if the penalty kill is that good and he's a big part in it, then sure, that's going to all factor into the way you evaluate him. But no, I mean, they're going to need more from, and I think we talked about this on a recent pod. Yep. They seem pretty set down the middle. And so there is some pressure, whether it's Besser, whether it's Garland, whether it's Mikheyev, whether it's Podkolzin taking that next step. There is some pressure on the wingers to hold up their end of the bargain, because the top 3 goal scorers from last year are those 3 guys that are going to line up down the middle. The center ice position, it looks pretty strong, but what can they get out of their wingers to bump the goal totals, to help this team offensively, to win a few more games?
Patrik Allvin's basically justifying not doing anything with his blue line, just talking about the amount of one-way contracts that they still had on the books on the blue line, and then just stated that the price was too much to move if they wanted to try to, get some salary out. And that's understandable. We've seen it around the league. We saw what happened with Vegas having to give away Max Pacioretty. We saw it with the Leafs a few years ago when they had to give away Marleau. So these things are happening around the league. I understand why the Canucks really had their hands tied when it came to the blue line.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, he was quick to point out that Brad Hunt was their only unrestricted free agent, and otherwise, it's going to take some time to reshape and remodel things here. And, as much as we all loved Brad Hunt, the person and the character, he's replaceable. He is. And the Canucks hope that they've done that. For me, the most telling quote I thought in the entire piece was where he says, if you end up having key players walk away for nothing, it just sets your team back. And, he didn't mention names, but I think we can all read into a bunch of Calgary Flames and, one that went to Montreal and then became a Calgary Flame as well. But I mean, that seemed like a pretty telling comment from the new GM, kind of on what he's inherited and just how he's trying to go about reshaping this group, that, there should be a little bit more in the cupboards, but the guy before him let a few key guys walk away for nothing.
But I also drew the line, or the parallel lines between the Bo Horvat stuff, because he said in terms of the Horvat contract extension, and this is quoting Allvin from The Athletic, I think in our case, I want to make sure that we are aware of our cap situation moving forward. And then after that, he talked about letting guys, not walk away. And that's where I drew the lines together, thinking that, okay, maybe they are now shifting focus here that, hey, perhaps maybe we can't get this done. Or if we can't get this done, we are going to have to consider, what our next steps are going to be with Bo Horvat, because they're certainly not going to want to let their captain walk for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think this much we know about Allvin, plays it pretty close to the vest, and you are left to read a little bit into some of the things he said, although I thought he answered the questions straight up, and it made for a great read. If people haven't had a chance yet, you should check it out. And, I'll be curious to see how much we hear from Patrik Allvin as the season goes along. Like, I don't think he seeks the limelight, but he works in the hockey market, and he's at the top of the food chain with this organization, and that comes with the territory when you're a GM in a market like Vancouver. So I am really going to be interested. He's kind of making the rounds here, as you said, in Penticton. Sun is shining, maybe a little wine flowing, like he's in a good mood, hasn't lost a game yet this season. But once they start playing for keeps, I wonder how much we're going to hear from the general manager in terms of any kind of regular update. Because that, remember, that ended up being one of the real knocks on Jim Benning at the end was, where is Jim? Like, I wasn't speaking publicly. It was hard to find. He wasn't answering his phone. All those types of things. And I remember too, I asked Francesco Aquilini once he made the house cleaning, how important is communication with the media and the fan base here moving forward? And absolutely. We have to find somebody that's a communicator. Jim Rutherford clearly is. Rutherford seems to like to talk. I don't know that Patrik Allvin necessarily loves that part of the job. So just going to be interesting to see, everything was new last year, but they're not really the new guys anymore, although it is their first full season starting with training camp here. But I just wonder how much, we'll see and hear from the general manager as the season unfolds.
Well, going back to our last podcast too, now I'm just wondering if, things with the Miller situation just all of a sudden got to a point where they're like, you know what, we got to sign this guy. And now we've got to sort of change our focus, our direction, because we don't know if we're going to be able to, do Bo Horvat when it looked like it was going to get done. Like everybody thought Horvat's coming back, Miller's going to get traded. This is what's going to happen. But when he references sort of like keeping on top of that salary cap and being aware of their situation moving forward, when you look at the guys that are going to need their next contracts, including Elias Pettersson and perhaps Brock Besser down the road too, like it's going to be interesting for the Canucks and see how they stick handle this, because we don't know exactly what's going to happen with the cap either. Like if the damn thing could just go up, this makes it a lot easier for a lot of teams.
Right. And I think we're expecting that in 2 years' time. But if anybody's expecting a quantum leap next summer, I think you're going to be disappointed. Yeah. But I also think, for me, part of the JT Miller signing was maybe even some insurance against Elias Pettersson pricing himself out of the market in a couple of years' time, or, if this team doesn't take the steps. Remember the comments last summer where he talked about, like, I want to play for a winner, and I want to see the organization take some steps here to like, we just saw it a province over with Matthew Tkachuk. Young guys control their fate and their destiny and all those types of things. And I'm not suggesting for a second, please, I don't want to see that in social that I'm saying Pettersson's
but Tkachuk opened the door, though. He opened the door for it.
All
right?
I'm saying. Yeah. These guys are shrewd. They're businessmen now, and Petey's a smart dude. Like, if this team doesn't take a step in 2 years when his contract is up, like, I might want out of Vancouver by then. We may take Rink Wide to another city at that point.
Let's do it. Let's go to Switzerland. You were just there. Like, let's go to Geneva.
Like, let's do it. I would be down with that. But
Rink Wide Swiss Hockey League.
Just don't fool yourself. These guys are smart now, and you're right. They all pay attention to what's going on around them, and that's the point. Is that I do think. That door has been open in other sports, and it kind of feels now like that door is open here in hockey. So let's see where it goes.
Well, I'm glad you sort of went there, JPat, because this is where I want to go next as we sort of pivot a little bit and just look around the league. I find this very interesting that Nathan MacKinnon is due for his contract extension, and apparently they're pretty close. And a lot of people are speculating whether he's going to be the highest paid player in the NHL. And as we've seen in other leagues, especially in football, like, it's kind of like when you're the quarterback and you're due your next contract and you're one of the big guys in the league, like, you become the highest paid player in the league, and then it turns over to the next guy, and then the next guy, Deshaun Watson. And we're seeing it right now with Lamar Jackson. He wants Deshaun Watson money, and He's absolutely right. He should get that. So
We
with
all
NHL
do.
players, yes, I want Deshaun Watson money. I don't want Deshaun Watson's baggage, nor do I want whatever the hell he's doing outside of that, but I want his money. But Nate McKinnon, though, asked about it, and he basically deferred to, listen, I'll let my agent take care of all of that. But it seems like NHL players, and I go back to Steven Stamkos when he was up for his contract extension and gave Tampa what was a hell of a deal, really, when you look at it a few years later. But NHL players, it's almost like they don't want to be the highest paid player in the league, and they want to be team guys and all that. I get all of that, but get yours. Like your career is only so many years long. And, someone like Nathan McKinnon, hopefully he can have a long career because he's one of the best players in the league, but get yours while you can. And I don't understand the mentality from NHL players. Now, I guess this has to do with the hard cap at this point, but there has to be something done here with the NHL because these guys are paying so much in damn escrow right now anyway. Like, you want to go out and get the most you can because 50% of it's going to escrow anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's life in the flat cap and hard cap world, as you mentioned. And I suppose the thinking is if you leave a little bit on the table, that's money they can go and, spend on somebody else and try to improve the team. Because we know that one guy and one guy alone, two in Edmonton, you can have two of the best in the world and Toronto too. Like, it is a team game ultimately. And so... but you're right. These careers are relatively short. And if you're among the best in the world, you should be paid. Like, I always think that. Like, I don't begrudge. If you're the best in the world at something, you should see some cash out of it. And Nathan McKinnon certainly has emerged. He's got the Stanley Cup now. But, this guy's just been ridiculously consistent, too, when you look back. 97, 99, 93. This past year was 88 in 65 games. Like, he's been an incredible producer, but incredibly consistent too. So I like the quote, like, I want it to be a fair deal, but it's going to be double digits.
Yes. And it should be.
No, absolutely.
It absolutely should be. I mean, we can go on a different discussion, maybe on a different podcast, but I think the hard cap in the NHL is completely ridiculous. Like, they have
I wish there were ways to franchise a player, like one of your own draft picks or a couple of your own draft picks. Like, there should be ways that,
JPat, when it was the Wild West, the Rangers weren't winning every cup. The Leafs obviously weren't winning every cup. Like, right? So,
yeah. But I just think there are ways to, and they've tried, like, when you look at, you can sign your own player to 8 years, nobody else can. Like, I guess I wish there were a few more mechanisms within the CBA for teams to draft, develop, and hold on to their own players to have some sort of advantage, maybe that would give them a little bit of, a cap relief for whatever the case, just that, whether it's a franchise tag or something like that. But, that's not the world we live in. And maybe the two sides will clash again at the bargaining table somewhere down the line and we'll see some changes. But, for now, this is the agreement.
Yeah. I just feel like if you're an NHL hockey player and you look around at the other pro leagues, you're going like, we're getting screwed here, guys.
Yeah.
And especially we've talked about this on past podcasts, like the middle class is like evaporated now. And then when you look at a number like 4.75 that we talked about with Mikheyev, that's sort of bridging on sort of the middle class of the NHL. But there's so much expectation if you wear that number now. Right. So,
yeah, I mean, again, it's always a difficult discussion to have, though. I mean, for you and me and guys that are busting, to make a living, nobody's going to feel sorry for Nathan McKinnon and the money that he's making. But again, it's all relative within that scale. He is in a very small conversation of the best players in the world. At what he does, the guy should get his, and he will. And the question is, should he be able to raise the bar? Like, should he be paid more than McDavid for a short while? And then McDavid's going to, have a chance, like Austin Matthews' next deal. Like,
what about Cale Makar's next deal?
Right. Well, I mean, he signed long term though. Like, that's not for a while. But
that's right. Yeah.
But just like 60 goal scorers, man. Again, like it's a crazy number. Guy should get paid, and he is getting paid. But it'll be wild to see what what kind of value you can put on. And obviously, there are limits too about one guy and the amount that he can chew up under the cap, and all those types of things, and it all has to be taken into account. But Nathan McKinnon is due his, and that's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I forgot about Makar's, what is it, 6-year deal at $9 per?
Yeah. I know.
That is going to be a hell of a deal. I mean, that's like
it already is.
It already is, exactly. But that's like McKinnon's contract that he's playing out right now. Like, he came off that year where he stumbled, and Colorado was able to pounce and get him at an amazing number. Best value contract in the NHL was Nate McKinnon's, and I think he absolutely deserves all the monies.
Sure, and not far behind was a guy like Braden Point in his bridge deal.
Yeah.
And what's the common denominator here is that these good teams are well run. They basically create internal caps. They they understand the greater good here.
Unless you're the Maple Leafs.
Well, then there's
everybody gets paid.
Yeah.
Okay. This is pretty interesting. And Grady, our social media guy, put this out there. What goal song would you like to hear at Rogers Arena this year? You know me and the music at Rogers Arena. We butt heads a lot. So they put it out there, and we got some suggestions from people. Kevin suggested in the on Twitter, and he was replying to my tweet, and he said, how about they pick 10 and let the season ticket members vote on it? Would you be okay with that?
I think that there's more cons than pros to that idea because, let's be honest, the season ticket members, I'm not sure that they're the ones that necessarily have a feeling for, just that sweet spot of music that you're looking for a goal song that's going to resonate with the entire fan base. So I don't know.
Too many suits in on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know what you can't paint the entire season ticket membership with a brush. I get that, but it's
expensive.
But I just wonder what, if you went with that experiment, I don't know that people would be thrilled with the results here. And you're right. I go to every game or almost every game, all the home games.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't even hear the music. There are people out there that freak out about goal songs, and I don't know, when goal scored, I'm watching the replay, I'm writing down notes, all that kind of stuff. The music's happening around me. I don't even know. I know Holiday has been one of their goal songs for a while. I swear, and I stand to be corrected here, and please, somebody correct me. I swear, for a short while, Van Halen's Dance the Night Away they used part of that.
Did. Yes.
Did they?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not.
It was between Holiday, wasn't it, or was it before Holiday?
I don't know.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
because I was a Van Halen guy. Growing up, that was sort of my wheelhouse. So I was man, that works for me. Just leave it at that. But okay, so I was thinking I was starting to lose the marbles a little bit there. But okay,
or was it Ain't Talking About Love?
See,
they had a Van Halen song though at some point. Anyway. So somebody will correct us. Hit us up. Great Clips inbox 778-402-9680, or hit us up on Twitter at Rink Wide Podcast. Now, as obviously, I bitch about the music there all the time. The whole in-game ops, they got to switch it up. I mean, it's the same thing every single night. And I know we're there, 41 games of the year. But some of the goal songs that I love, like Bro Hymn by Pennywise, the Anaheim Ducks use it. And it's perfect because it's, that punk, SoCal punk rock, like that the chorus, the whoa, it's just something people can get behind. To me, that's the all-time best. You mentioned Van Halen. Panama by Van Halen could work. I've always been, and I'm pre-Sammy Hagar.
Used to work as a radio intro for me once upon a time.
That's right. Patterson.
Yes.
No, it absolutely works. Van Halen, I'll take all day. I also got another suggestion. Iron Maiden, Run to the Hills. During the chorus, you don't get the fans yelling, "Run to the hills." I don't know if they want to sing it that badly, but you can get behind it, perhaps.
Geographically would work with hills in Vancouver.
Yes, exactly,
right?
Exactly.
No.
Some suggestions in the inbox. It's from one of our buddies, actually, Miles. The kid is hot tonight. Lover boy. Use that.
Local.
I'm okay with that one. Speaking of, does it have to be local too? Because I was sort of looking around.
But I see somewhere that in the preseason they're going to roll out 3 local bands or 3 songs from 3 local bands and experiment a little. I thought I saw that somewhere. So
how new is it going to be though? Because when I think of Vancouver bands, and showing my age a little bit here, but Matthew Good band, or maybe a Econoline Crush. shit, Skinny Puppy. I don't think they would be using Skinny Puppy. That'd be a little obscure. Speaking of obscure,
they're getting a dog, but I don't think
exactly.
That's a separate combo.
This is pretty obscure as well. This is B Reynolds on Twitter saying that they should do "I Go to Work" by Kool Moe Dee. Now, as much as I love Kool Moe Dee, I don't know if it works as a goal song. Also on Twitter here, this is at Coyote WFG saying home team enters the ice, period end, scores anything AC/DC. So I know the Aquilinis could get behind that.
Right.
You're not the hugest music guy.
I'm not.
Does one song sort of stand out, or is it like, would Van Halen sort of be okay with you?
No, I mean, look, I just said Van Halen's in my wheelhouse, and so I was pretty certain that they had used it for a while, but I can't place the time exactly. But again, like I look, whatever they decide, I guess I hope that we all hear it an awful lot, that that they're scoring in bunches. I don't know what was wrong with individual goal songs for a while there. Like, I actually thought that showed some creativity, and you talk about mixing it up at the very least. I didn't need Brandon Sutter with the country. I think he was Tim McGraw or somebody. That's not exactly my area of expertise, but it showed some personality. It showed, so there were different songs after different goals. Like it added some variety, little, shake things up. I didn't mind the idea. I mean, we see walk-up songs, baseball, individual goal songs. I had no issue with that whatsoever.
Okay, let's move on here. We're almost at the end of this. Greatest Canuck to wear, and we were at number 88. We said it was going to be an interesting poll, as it's Nikita Triamkin versus Nate Schmidt versus Adam Gaudette. Where did the people go, JPat?
Yeah, it didn't end well for any of those in Vancouver, did it?
Nope. Unless you're Rick Dhaliwal, who's still trying to get Triamkin back here.
Nate was short and sweet. Gaudette, under the cover of COVID, and Trampkin. Well, the people have a soft spot for BFG there, so I'm gonna say Trampkin.
Yeah. Over 50%, 52.6% of them. Dhaliwal riled up the troops, got them all to vote. Nikita Triamkin, and Dhaliwal still thinks he's coming back. Really, like he still thinks there's hope for it. So maybe we'll see. Number 88 back with the Canucks. Nate Schmidt got 26.3% of the vote. I voted for Nate Schmidt because I think Nate Schmidt is a good guy, and honestly, kind of wanted to see him here longer. I think it's unfortunate that he moved on. Adam Gaudette, 21.2% of the vote. And as mentioned, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. We've got 5 numbers left. 89. I think this is pretty simple. Who's going to win this? There's 2 guys, but it's McGillney all the way. I think really the only battle that's coming up, actually, we only have 3 more votes because 92 and 95 are only worn individually by Vasily Podkolzin and Justin Bailey. So we have 89, 91, and 96, but 96 is in a debate as well. So really, we only got 91 left, and that's going to be Jared McCann versus Juho Lammikko. So very interested to see where that one goes. 96, in my opinion, should be in the rafters right next to number 10. The guy wore 2 numbers. I mean, anyway, I'm not going to get on that soapbox again. All right. You mentioned that we are back on Tuesday. We're going to get the full recap of what you saw there in Penticton. And then you and I are going to be in Whistler. I'm going to be at training camp. Looking forward to that. We'll be there on Friday and Saturday. And I believe we're going to do a special Friday evening podcast after that first day of training camp.
Yeah, it's training camp. And there, as we said, there's intrigue. So we'll bust it down and, probably do one each day of training camp. And then they're playing games. Like next weekend, the Vancouver Canucks big league team steps onto the ice. So training camp goes by in a blur, and then we get into post-game pods and looking forward to all of that. I just want to take a sec here to say hi, and thanks to the number of people, listeners, that stopped me at the South Okanagan Event Center during the Canucks game. I made my way down to the concourse to catch up with Sakaris and Price and the guys from Neighborhood Brewing, and as I fought my way through the crowd, and it was a good crowd, there was really good energy in the building. Tons of people are like, JPat, Rink Wide. And I awoke to a text, or to a DM actually, from Mike, who was apologizing and said, I hope I wasn't rude, but I'm just a big fan of the podcast. And I don't know, I don't know what he remembers about our encounter, but I thought he was completely above board, and we had a quick chat and everything was good. So Mike, it's all cool. Everything's good. Thanks for listening. Thanks for stopping by. And, I'm here through Monday afternoon, 2 more games for the Canucks. So if you hear this and you see me, flag me down. JPat, let us know that you're listening to Rink Wide. And I do want to thank the guys at Neighborhood Brewing. Been terrific hosts. Matt and Blake did their show on Thursday and Friday. We had a big social gathering on Thursday to sort of kick off the weekend. And again, chance to meet a few listeners there, people that, here in the Okanagan, but, they found Rink Wide and said that they enjoy the show and they're looking forward to the season and all that kind of good stuff. So it's been fun, and we'll have to get you up here next year for Young Stars, and maybe we do post-game pods after each of the Young Stars. I tried my best. I don't know if you saw. I tried to do like a really quick little post-game video. I look like I'm coming out of the shadows. I sort of emerged. There were some lighting issues that we will work on as we push forward here. But just quick little recap of the game with a plug for the pod here. But yes, we got to figure out the lighting because it was a little backlit against the white ice of the South Okanagan Event Center, which is just an incredible junior hockey facility. And it's so funny to watch all these NHL like managers and sort of the old hockey guys that come through, and you think in their playing days what their junior rinks probably looked like, and here's this one. This is probably as good or better than the Arizona Coyotes are going to play in on the ASU campus this year. A lot of people comparing it to like good U.S. college sort of facilities. Got the 2 sheets of ice. The V's have an incredible locker room. So Penticton, it really is. It's the perfect place for this tournament. And it's just so good to have it back after COVID and a couple of years there where the Canucks just didn't have enough in the system really to field a competitive team. And the Alberta teams opted out for whatever reasons. What were they thinking? It's Penticton in September. It's some golf, wine, and then there's some hockey in there as well.
And some selfies with JPat. What was the selfie count at
at the Thursday night gathering, I posted a couple of photos.
There you go. See if we can get a light in the budget as well to get you all lit up there.
Did you see my skate socks?
I did not. You've got skate socks?
You're not checking my IG. I posted, busted out, brand new, like they were out of the package. Had never worn them before, saved them for opening night of the hockey season. They were dress socks with skates on them.
All right. Wow. Mm-hmm. I look forward to those. Maybe we'll have to do a little segment where we talk about your socks every single week. Any shops or sock sponsors out there that want to sponsor us?
That's as much laundry as you're going to see on my social feed. So, yeah.
All right. So JPat will be boots on the ground there in Penticton. Follow him on Twitter if you're not following him already, and you'll get the updates through his account. And of course, follow us on Rink Wide at Rink Wide Podcast on Twitter, on Instagram as well. And I believe we're doing a video this week where we're going to launch our YouTube page as well. So you're going to be following or subscribing or whatever it is on YouTube. I don't know. Is it a follow, subscribe? I think it's a subscription. So just follow us there.
Subscription makes it sound like it's a
payment. It makes it sound like you're paying. Yeah, you're not paying.
No,
we give you everything for free here.
But
we'll be doing our pre-games exclusively on YouTube. So we'll have a video there.
Look at us branching out.
Wow. Yeah. Hey. Well, get ready because you're going to be on TikTok soon as well.
I'm not so sure about that. Well, I won't be dancing. Canucks and Jets on Sunday afternoon. Canucks and Oilers to finish things up on Monday. And so, on Monday, I'll check in with Sakaris and Price. I'll still be here in Penticton. I'll have a recap of my thoughts on the game against the Jets. And then Tuesday, you and I will get back here with a new edition of Rink Wide, and we'll have a full recap. Canucks get into the Jake Milford golf tournament. The regulars, they'll be out at Northview on Monday. And then it's physicals and weigh-in. I think Bruce Boudreau's holding court with the media on Wednesday at Rogers Arena with some of the players that we haven't heard from. I think we get Kuzmenko. We're going to hear from Kuzmenko for the first time in the coming week. They're going to make him available. Maybe a few others, Mikheyev as well. And then it's off to Whistler, training camp on Friday and Saturday. So we're into it. Hockey season is here again, and that is a good thing.
Yep, it's go time, and absolutely right. Training camp next week up in Whistler. For JPat, I'm Wadden. You've been listening to another edition of the Rink Wide podcast. And remember, Rink Wide is the show. It always goes.